the escalating cost of medical treatment and things like that. Whether are you paying out of pocket or buying insurance, the cost seems to have run away, especially when you have to support your parents.
Everything feels like it's ran away.
Yeah.
But this one feels quite bad.
The worry is true, right? It's not sustainable for it to continue to rise at this pace. Oftentimes, that discussion is about, okay, what's your current salary? And then what is the current price that you have to pay at your current age? Fast forward a few more years when the premium continue to increase, right, based on age. So when admission rate into hospital increases around 4% per annum before age 65, increases at 6% per annum after age 65. So you can already expect that natural gradient to move up like that. And average length of stay for those in retirement is usually double that of the working adults.
Yeah, because one of my concerns about the sandwich generation is that if they're going to pay at both ends, right? High cost for education, high cost for healthcare, right? I mean, where are they going to find the money?
Of course.
They might end up in poverty, in some way, to put it in extreme.
Welcome back to TFC GE2025 Special. I'm your host, Reggie, aka your Chief Financial Coconut.
And I'm Adrian, LinkedIn top noise author.
Has it become your identity?
It has. I tend to lean into it.
Why?
Funny is nice.
Funny is nice. So you've been following all the memes, essentially.
It's very hard not to. And we'll touch a bit about that later on.
Yes. Today's panel are the important ones. So the first few days, all warm up. Right now, we are entering the big discussion, which is housing and healthcare, right? Both very, very big, front and center of people's mind. And we are very happy to be joined with two experts. Would you like to introduce yourself for our audience that don't know you? For some reason.
Okay, my name is Eun Sir. I'm a sociologist. I used to be with FASS, but now I'm with the Institute of Policy Studies. I see myself more as an academic and as a somewhat informed citizen. So in other words, I don't really think very much in partisanship term, but I try to be objective, try to think in terms of principles.
You think you're just an informed citizen, or are you informing citizens? You write so many things, publish so many things.
Well, I hope to inform too along the way. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So later we'll talk a little bit more about the housing, healthcare, everything up your alley. Yes. And Alex, for audience that don't know you.
Hi, I'm Alex, former regulator, former CFO and chief actuary of insurance companies, now an independent actuarial consultant. For those who don't know what actuaries do.
That was what I was about to ask. Yes, for those who don't know. Yes.
For those who don't know, right? Most actuaries in Singapore work within the insurance ecosystem. So they set the price of the premium that you pay and determine how much reserve need to be set aside to ensure that when you make a claim, eventually you get paid. But I think that's the more narrow interpretation of what actuaries do. What, in the wider sense, we actually help people to quantify uncertainty and risk into financial terms so that you know when you make decision, what's the financial implication of it so that you can make more sound and more informed judgment.
Okay, awesome. And like we said, today is going to be the big ones. And shout out to our friends on Instagram. Once again, I want to repeat to you that the optimal consumption experience
is on YouTube.
Yes. Right? So we got a whole setup on YouTube. Go to YouTube. If not, you want to stay on Instagram, it's also okay. But go to YouTube. That's what
as long as you watch us.
Yeah, as long as you watch, you stay with us. Okay, so that is awesome. Maybe for a start. Okay, so just to lay the ground, we're going to break this into two parts. The first hour, we're going to focus on the healthcare plan, right? To look at all the different parties, also try to look at what is the situation now, have some sort of a thought around what's going on, what's the ideal stay, and have that discussion. And then similarly for housing, we'll do it at a later hour, okay? But for a start, as with every day that we go live, gossip a bit, just as part of the GE fund, so what has caught your attention, over the course of the past few days? Maybe anybody want to take a jab at it?
Well, maybe I start with me not really understanding the angst of people at Workers' Party when they don't contest in Marine Parade.
I also don't get it.
Yeah. Because actually I see it as really a litmus test on whether people are true supporters of Workers' Party opposition or not. Because if you look at the role of the MP that we elect, they do two things, right? First, they do the municipal stuff, the local, taking care of your estate, right? The other is going into the parliament and advocating for policies and changes, right? For the municipal stuff, right? Recently, I stopped hearing about friends around me that when they stay in opposition ward, it is very different from PAP's ward. It doesn't happen that much anymore. So actually, the main difference is what they do in the parliament now. right? And if you're a true opposition or Workers' Party supporter, then you actually want more of them in parliament. And, it's very hard to canvas for resource, whether is it human or financial resource. So you just trust the judgment of WP. If they think that contesting 26 seats is the optimal way to get most of them into parliament, you just support them, right? Don't have to be so angry.
I mean, that's your platform, right?
Right.
Then,
and also for the fellow opposition parties who are also very angry, then I'm also very puzzled because, we run a first past the post system. The math is there. You have to respect the math, right? Then entering into like four corner fights. Okay, if you think that by doing four corner fights and given the math, it brings you closer to your policy position, then well and fine, stay in the race, right? But if it does not, then I don't understand what you're doing, right? Yeah, and if you can't even respect the math, then how do I trust you to manage all the financial situation of the country?
Fair. And I'm actually very surprised that the media spends so much time on that. I'm like, we did our first live, right? We had that for 5 minutes and we're done. It's like, every party has the right to decide where they want to contest. They have made their critical decisions and they made their calculus. The PAP also shift ministers around. They're all making their calculus, right? You compete to win. They all want to win. If you don't want to win, that also a bit weird, lah. It's like, what are you doing here, Califare, is it? Right? So they made their calculus. It is what it is. Move on. Right? Okay. Fair. And Eunson, what about you?
Well, actually, my sense is that I think this election is sort of taking too long.
Taking too long. Wow.
Actually, I'm feeling a bit tired also. It's like, the conversation has stopped.
Last year, we were talking about election date, right? And then at first, we were talking about June, May, and then September. And then here we are, right? After so many months, right? But my sense is that, in a long season like this, right? You got a lot of people coming out of the woodwork. And then usually you get the more chatty, loud ones who throw in their views, right? I'm not saying whether there's a right thing to do or not, but the thing is that you give people an opportunity to actually voice those kind of opinion. And my sense also is that I think there seems to be a lot more polarization. I know we think of America as polarized, right? But I think there's also some degree of polarization here because people are talking past one another, all right? So, and the two sides can never convince one another at all. Yeah, and that's in the nature of things. So I hope that at some point there can be some kind of consensus at the end of the election and beyond that.
Okay, fair.
I think this aspect was somewhat mentioned in one of our previous episodes because social media, there's a good side, there's also the bad side.
A bit drag on, that's what extreme, yes.
It overwhelms you, it educates you, but it overwhelms you. And at the same time, it just keeps showing you the same thing over and over again. And naturally, society just becomes very polarizing. Yeah.
But any fun ones? They're all very serious ones.
My fun one is still the debate about, I did not move from here to there. I did not shift.
Stupid.
It's a walkover. I said 3 times already. Oh, that one is like, oh my god. You don't understand. I said 3 times. I don't have to say in Cantonese. I'm not sure if you know the reference.
I don't know. Who is that?
So that was mentioned by Tan Si Ling when he was asked why he also shift from Marine Parade out to somewhere else. So to him, it's not shift. It's a walkover. So I never shift. So that kind of logic is like, wow.
No, to be fair, I think both sides are trying too hard on this thing.
Exactly.
Right? Same with Yong Yi Kang and Sembawang, right? And say Jishujuan. And then Paul came in and said, hey, you also shift around. You're from Aljunied, shift. So to me, it's like, let's move past this kind of lame, like 小朋友 type of like battle, right? It's like, I don't friend you. It's as good as that, right? And that's my point of view. Like, you want to do some negative politics, right? At least be a bit more sophisticated. This is a bit too kiddish, in my point of view.
I think nowadays people are just intelligent enough to discern whether it's mudslinging. And if you say this, then what about that thing that you did? And once we see through this and we have a negative connotation of it, whatever else you said, which is legit, we cannot hear it.
Yeah, fair. So I think we objectively should move on from this. Yes. So you got something to say?
No, I think there's, of course, you can spin it things any way you want. So whatever you say, there will always be a counter challenge,
Yes.
And so
Especially these days when everybody can have a voice, right?
Yeah.
Like look at Saturday after, we are here doing this thing. Everybody can take up some mics and and put up content on. I mean, we're not just every random people, yeah, but it's the barrier entry is so low these days, right? So whatever you can say, someone else can say, right? So if you're not consistent, you're just waiting to be called out, right? So maybe for me, the only fun one was Dr. Paul Tambaya, right? So I think in one of his recent rally, he was wearing like a lot of stuff, right?
It was so...
Wow, it was like, and then somebody in the comment section was like, wow, he looks like a cardinal. Because it's a lot of things, And I was like, yes, so I had to bring it up today. Yeah. And also bring up Dr. Paul because I think in part of our healthcare discussion, the STP does have a very different plan compared to everyone, which we will go into that later. So beginning our discussion, maybe I would like to open the floor. Of course, primarily Alex, right? So and this is your profession. What is your read on the current healthcare situation in Singapore?
Okay, I think the ground view is probably when they look at the escalating cost of medical treatment and things like that, whether are you paying out of pocket or buying insurance, right? The cost seems to have run away, especially when you have to support your parents.
Everything feels like it's ran away.
Yeah.
But this one feels quite bad.
It feels quite bad. So I actually would point, I mean, the worry is true, right? It's not sustainable for it to continue to rise at this pace. But I think I would trace the root cause to us being given the wrong impression of how much or how good a quality of healthcare that we can actually afford. Okay, let's take the experience that most people may have, right, when they buy private health insurance, right? When they're supposed to do needs analysis to see whether you can afford the plan or not. Oftentimes, that discussion is about, okay, what's your current salary? And then what's the current price that you have to pay at your current age? So that's why when fast forward a few more years when the premium continue to increase, right, based on age. So naturally, when admission rate into hospital increases around 4% per annum before age 65, increases at 6% per annum after age 65. So you can already expect that natural gradient to move up like that. And average length of stay for those in retirement is usually double that of the working adults. So it's a natural progression. So it's already expected. The more responsible financial advisors would actually flip further into that disclosure and say that, okay, Reggie, you are age 40, right? So the cumulative premium based on this table until age 90 may be, let's say if you buy a private plan with rider, maybe 400,000, right? Right. But the more responsible one would tell you that, but this is the current rate table.
Yes, I know.
Right. It's not unimaginable that the medical inflation may increase by 3 to 4% per annum. Let's pick 4% per annum. So given that rate, your cumulative premium until age 90 would actually be 1.7 million. So do you still want to buy your private plan with rider? If the rep has been responsible and tell you this story, then you may not have outright picked the private plan with rider. The question is, what proportion of the reps are doing that for the customer? And when they're not doing that, is there any scrutinies or compliance check or enforcement by regulator and things like that? And that I'm not close enough to the situation, so I don't know. But from the ground, those people who felt very disgruntled that they are forced to drop or downgrade their plan, then probably there's significant amount of people that are not getting the complete advice.
I have two questions for you, right? I think on one hand, as you talk about this rising cost, right, you find that, in fact, there are many seniors, I mean, I do not know the exact number, right, who are actually not covered at all, right? So when you talk about the sandwich generation, right, they have to support younger kids in school and all that, right? And they also have parents who are not covered at all, absolutely. So in other words, if they happen to suffer some chronic illness or serious illness, who's going to pay for it, right? So my question next is, is MediShield Life enough to take care of those big amount?
I would say yes. If you pick B2 or C ward, right? Because I wouldn't say it's not covered because everyone is covered by MediShield Life. Correct. So if you choose to stay in B2 and C ward, it's actually quite sufficient. The case in point would be my dad passed away last year. He had a 1 full month stay in Tan Tock Seng. B2 ward.
B2.
Yeah, and the out-of-pocket is not excessive. It's fairly manageable.
So we're not talking about the hundreds of thousands.
It's low five digit.
Okay.
It's fine. But if you want more comfort, want to be in single room, want to have that more aircon, more privacy, then yes, it becomes significantly costly. Yes.
Yeah, because one of my concerns about the sandwich generation is that if they're going to pay at both ends, right? High cost for education, high cost for healthcare, right? I mean, where are they going to find the money?
Of course.
They might end up in poverty, in some way, to put it in extreme sense.
But given that there's a cheaper solution already, wouldn't it just be a way to solve it by lowering your expectation?
Yes, and I think that needs to be done. But if done too drastically, we also have a capacity issue. Right. So if suddenly everyone downgrades to restructured hospital, right, and the demand for restructured hospital suddenly jump, we may not have enough bed, and it sort of worsen the bed crunch, right? So there's a slightly more urgent need to build more and more public hospital, I think.
Okay, so just to move that conversation, right? Essentially, where you're thinking of at this point in time is really at the insurance premium level.
And it's not just that. That false sense of affordability also comes after you have purchased the plan. Let's say if you have purchased the plan with rider, right, and especially those that give you cashless experience, right? You just go into the hospital, they'll serve you very well. Since it's all paid for anyway, you don't mind taking more comfortable services, or maybe stay a day or two more just to recuperate. You won't mind. And you won't check the bill, right? And from the provider angle, if no one is challenging my bill, I will just bill you. Right? So it sort of leads to the escalation, you see. So if people actually started with a lower plan that they can actually afford, right? And let's say if they don't have a rider, they actually have to pay a fair bit of out of pocket, then they will start to have a scrutiny on the bill, and they will be able to tell their provider to say that, okay, actually I cannot afford that much. I only get treated up to this point, right? And then I think the overall healthcare spend of the country would naturally reduce, and also the margin for the providers will also naturally get back to a more reasonable level.
Fair.
So that's why one of the key points that I quite agree in the SDP healthcare policy is that because basic healthcare is a human right thing, right? No one should be excessively profiteering from this.
Okay.
Right. But at the moment, there's the check and balance on the margins that different stakeholder takes from in the chain is actually quite unchecked, I would say.
Okay. Actually, can you expand for us a little bit? Like, what's the margins that everybody is making? Because I think for a lot of our regular audience, right, they may have a little bit understanding of like insurance premiums and different products types, but there's a whole complex back end of fulfillment, right? Which is your hospital, your drugs, all those things. Can you kind of paint us a picture?
Since actuaries work with insurance company a lot, so let me start with talking about the insurance companies. So based on the statistics published by MAS, right, between 2014 to 2023, the average profit margin for the whole private insurance industry was just 2%. So there's a lot of demonization of the insurers profiteering from the system. Actually, not 2%. If you look at also the cost of capital angle, the shareholders are basically earning 8 to 10% on their investment, right? So it's what you would expect as an equity investor anyway, right? So I think it's a fair margin to look at. Actually, when MAS published the 2024 stats, and you do the recalculation of the rolling 10 years profitability, chances are, I'm guessing that you end up seeing a zero or a negative margin. So basically, your insurers are doing social service for you already. So they're not really the demon, but because they are the one that is rejecting your claim sometimes, so you kill the messenger. So just
to be clear, that is the insurance company, right?
The
issuer,
the shareholders.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
So then, with every dollar of private insurance premium that you pay, right? Just now we say 2 cents went to the shareholders, right? Close to 80 cents to $1, 78 goes to paying the claims, right? To pay the salaries and rent of the insurer operating the business, around 8 cents to $1, and your distributor get 12 cents to $1. So it's really for the public to say that whether you feel that this is a reasonable split or not.
So the agents make quite good sums lah.
And their leader and the upline basically.
Okay.
So there's always that encouragement to upsell.
Yeah. That's a different discussion.
That's
for another time.
Next podcast.
For next podcast. Yes. But on the hospital part, right? Because, I think that's a big part of the overall cost structure of healthcare, right? So you're saying that 78 cents, to about 80 cents go there, right?
Yeah, and the margin, I think for most hospital groups is around 8 to 10% profit margin. But if you re-express it as a return on capital or return on investment, therefore it won't be 100%, right? So therefore it would jump to maybe 30, 40%. So as an equity investor, it's
amazing.
Very amazing.
Yeah.
Same level of margin for the pharmaceutical companies.
Okay, so that's where we need to compress it. No.
It's basically
so this is the discussion. A
lot of the times it's based on your affordability, your ability to pay. So the way that many pharmaceutical companies price their drugs is like how, let's say, your FIFA price your broadcast right. The richer countries pay more. Yeah. Right. Of course, when you ask some of the people who work in the pharmaceutical industry, they will say that, it's fair if you don't have the richer people paying for this development, the mankind would not get this solution.
And so elevated.
Yeah, so everyone suffer, right? But the question is, therefore, do we see ourselves as a country as rich as the States, where they are subsidizing the bulk of the R&D cost, right?
Yeah. That's a different discussion.
Yeah, that's a different.
But I understand what you mean. Okay, so with that as the backdrop, right? And I think for Singaporeans, or at least for my view is for most Singaporeans, when it comes to healthcare, right? Of course, everybody want like as affordable as possible, as good a coverage as possible, as quality a service as possible, right? That's what everybody will want, right? Nobody wants escalating prices. The housing one, that's a different discussion. That's for later. But healthcare, I think everybody want all these lah, right? So more affordable, good quality, efficient, and all that, right? So with that you've laid down the current situation, and with that as I would argue the unified goal of everyone. Let's take a look at some of the manifesto ideas that people have lah. So I think the easiest way to start is to start with PAP's one, okay? Because PAP essentially governs, and the whole system set up in their ideas, right? So we start with theirs and then use that as a reference to evaluate everyone else, okay? So these are some of the healthcare plans that the PAP have in the manifesto lah, okay? So a few major things. One is to increase healthcare facilities, which they have been talking about for a long time. So whether is it the one in Yishun, Khoo Teck Puat, right? And all the way going forward, there'll be new hospitals, Alexandra and all those. So essentially increasing capacity, right? Increasing beds, about 13,000 beds in the next 5 years. That's what they say. And then, of course, to continue adjust some of the Medisave, MediShield kind of thing, but it's very tapering, not much, right? Very tweaking, which I would argue the other party are also just tweaking, So the few big things would be expanding healthcare facilities, growing the nursing workforce, and then, of course, continue to move ahead into the prevention, healthy, active SG, type of thing, which I think is great. That part I think is very good. Yeah. So what is your take on this? Like, do these major strokes actually solve the existing struggle?
It would help to keep things in check, right? But of course, all this would still not address the point about margins that we talked about earlier, right? It will just keep the pace, not accelerating even further, right? Increasing bed capacity and all these are all fair, right? In fact, the MediShield repricing last year, right? I think it's also good in the sense that it keeps the premium or the percentage of the bill that is paid for by the MediShield Life within that 90% target. So I think it's a good recalibration. Yeah. So the question is now how all these things that they are doing interact with the private healthcare and private sectors, private insurance space.
Okay, can you paint us some picture there?
So you are seeing a bit of a trend there. Last month, I think MOH and CPF board worked together to come up with this health insurance planner that you can log into CPF website to see, okay, what is actually the premium that you have to pay for the next 30, 40 years if you stay with your current plan, with or without rider, you can choose, and assuming what is your future income like. So it gives you that reality check that I just now talked about, what you really afford. And if you find that you cannot really afford, then what adjustment you want to make. Either you work harder to earn more or you downgrade your plan or maybe both, right? But having that sense of what your real affordability, I think is important. It's a good step forward. So we will just now wait and see how the population react to this latest information that they are presented.
Hey, welcome to the Financial Coconut Podcast Network. I'm your host, Reggie, aka your Chief Financial Coconut. And if you're loving what we're creating here, like, share, subscribe, share with your loved ones, comment in the comment section below. And yeah, we'll see you for great content on Chills with TFC. Okay, so just to be very clear, so essentially the plan that PAP has at this point in time, it's not going to structurally change anything. It's just kind of like keeping up with the situation. It's just kind of like how you continue to build more MRT lines because the population keep growing and more people need to stay. It's not going to really adjust the way things are. It's just kind of like, okay, this will be how things are.
Actually, the point about giving people awareness of how much they can afford actually is not in the manifesto, but they're already doing.
Yeah,
I think that is likely to have more impact than those stuff.
Okay. I mean, there's also the cancer drug list, right? Which was even earlier, where essentially they try to draw a line on like, okay, these are the drug pricing that we will do and then manage from there, right? And I think I had a chat with some of the oncologists and then they say it's effective, right? So prices have all come down. Essentially, just you draw one line, everybody move in the line, right? So those things are happening lah. Okay.
I think it's also important. I mean, even as you talk about affordability, that we pay what we can afford, right? But it has to be quality healthcare. It doesn't mean that just because you are paying less or you can't afford to pay more, the quality has gone down, right? I think it should be of a certain standard, right? Because I understand that in some system where you have free healthcare, right? But actually, those who are on free healthcare actually don't get very good quality services, right? Or maybe if you need an operation or surgery or something, it's quite urgent, but you don't get it till like X number of months ahead in the future, right? So I don't think that's what we have in mind. So affordable, but also quality, right?
Of course, yeah.
So the prevention aspect actually is really the key here.
Yeah.
And that is appear to be the only thing that, or rather the thing that only PAP seems to have, which is on the healthcare FG, of course, trying to re-emphasize doubling down on that.
Correct. Yeah, because in the medical profession, they actually say that it's actually a mislabel to say that these are healthcare costs. It's actually sickness care costs. All this spending on hospital and all this is to fix things. The healthcare cost is mainly if you want to maintain the health, it's the preventive stuff that you do. That spending is the genuine healthcare cost.
Yeah. So once again, I want to repeat that Active SG is doing a good job. Really, the gyms are getting better. Right. But even then, structurally, this is still a growing problem, right? Because the margins are still there, and cost is still moving up for a lot of people. So as much as some of these plans look sound, but truth of the matter is, the people are still feeling the pain, right? And I would argue that these few are the main things, right? So healthcare, housing, education, these are the biggest pains, right? And when some people talk about transport, utilities, all that, right? I'm not saying that the mass does not feel the pain, but sometimes I feel like you're just arguing for the things that are easiest to solve, or you feel like you can get the direct impact lah. But if you look at anybody's Rolodex, right, you look at their balance sheet, 最贵的 is these few things, right? Housing, healthcare, education, and they tend to be very complicated in the structure that has been set up. So that's why we want to talk about it, right? So maybe any last things to add on?
I think we haven't said very much about healthcare SG, right? I thought it's a pretty good system, right? Because you go and see your GP and then they charge you a pretty small sum. I heard that actually GP don't make a lot of money from healthcare SG, right?
Oh, I have no clue.
And also you have all the information, on their database or platform, and I think that's very helpful because you can go anywhere and the doctor will know what you have been up to, right? Or what have you seen, what are allergy and things like that.
I heard the GPs all got scooped. There's a period of time GPs were making good money, and then this thing came.
There's some kind of price control.
Some form of price controls to try to tell you, okay, you can make money, but control yourself. So then these things.
But I believe that at the community level, it is very helpful.
I think so. I think so. It's not always about profits.
And rather than people, the moment they're sick, they have to go and run to A&E or something, right? Or even a polyclinic, which tends to be quite overcrowded anyway.
Yeah.
I just recently signed up for it, so there's a lot of preventive information you can find on it. Yeah. I always have trouble trying to find out when should I go for my flu jab and all that, and everything is in there.
Okay.
It's really great information.
One more step, I feel like MOH needs to sponsor it. so before we go there, but okay, so I give credit to all these ideas, right? But because we want to discuss some of the other policy plans, right? So maybe we can kind of expand to look at some of the other parties, which as we have laid down from the start, SDP is the quote unquote the furthest, a different one, right? So let's just kind of go through Workers' Party and PSP first. So broadly speaking, right, Workers' Party and PSP wants the same thing, right? And the broad strokes is they all want to expand the type of care that is within the system. Right, so whether is it dental, mental, fertility, like it's just about allowing the people to claim more of this type of like new age care lah, maybe lah. Okay, I don't know how else to put it. Okay, but it's just trying to expand the suite of cares, and then once again, similar to PAP, wants to tinker the subsidies across the board, right? So it's just everybody wants to tinker different things, but it's all just tinkering in my worldview, right? And I think the only variance would be that there's some sort of a allowing Singaporeans to use Medisave, a little bit like more of Medisave. In fact, I think Workers' Party and PSP both want to allow Singaporeans to use more of their Medisave, right? And what are your thoughts on that?
The question is, okay, you give that flexibility, so the Medisave balance will deplete faster, and when that runs to zero, then what's that part, the then what was not explained. So therefore, if it means more government funding, more subsidy, then I always go back to the question, how you plan to pay for it. Right, so I think among the different manifestos or policy papers, I think only SDP is the one that actually tried to quantify how they're going to pay for it.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. Any thoughts when you read it? Or
I did some research into, of course, SDP policy because they are arguing for the
I love how we just write off the other two. No, but I think just to sum up that part, right? Because truth of the matter is, it really does not look very different. And I think that's not to write off all the other parts of their manifesto, because I think in retirement, in housing, the WP, PSP, they all have more interesting ideas, which we will go to later in the later segment. But in healthcare alone, it really doesn't look like it's too innovative. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, correct.
Right. It's just like change here, change there. Everything sounds good, but like not really. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
So I was sweating.
and I think the fixation is there because Dr. Paul is there.
So
you would imagine that his idea will be more well thought out, with more substance, and he has been arguing for single payer for the longest time. And I did some check on this, and it is really radically very different. It's almost dismantling the entire system right now.
It's a whole different imagination. So Alex is the right place to share with us a bit more, because he says it's good, well thought through, right? So maybe give us an idea, like what is the SDP healthcare plan?
I think their central idea is, of course, more redistribution, but also to keep the whole system as efficient as possible. And they don't believe that anyone should be overly profiteering from healthcare, because that is basic human right? So that principle, I agree. So by having the central payer to buy all the drugs for both the public and private sector, you have a better negotiation power. By also having standard formulary, standard drug list, so that similar conditions are treated in a standardized way, it reduces the variation and associated admin costs around that. I think all those are fine. I think for the masses, it is okay. But I do caution that there would be a downside, but it may not be for the mass, for the downside, right? Taiwan also run a sort of universal healthcare system, right? And they have like 20 they have 20 million population, right? And when they want to do single payer, some drug company would say that, if you're going to press my margin until so low, then I'm not offering the drug to your country, right? So for the masses, probably it may still be okay, but maybe the top decile may say that, by moving to central payer, now I lose access.
No worries. They can do medical tourism in Thailand. Bangkok will gladly suck them up. Bangkok will be like, hello, 2-train program here, just come.
Glad that it doesn't have to come from my mouth.
Sorry.
It's okay. I prefer that.
But that is what
that will be the consequence,
right? And that's what a lot of the wealthy people are already doing, right? If they cannot get the care that they want where they are, they will go to somewhere else to do it, right? And I do believe that broadly in the Singapore system, as much as we do welcome the rich to be based here, to like run business here, put their wealth here, we don't always structure things, with them as a top of mind lah. Like, like the whole, everybody in housing, which will come to that, nobody talk about condo at all, zilch, right? So it's like our public infrastructure and our public discourse in policy making still mostly revolve around most of the people and not like not that small little decile at the top lah.
Yeah. So I think the trade-off is fair, especially with technology. It doesn't mean that medical tourism, when the patient go to a foreign country to get treatment, you cannot do part of the consultation remotely, right? So the existing doctors who are serving this clientele can still be largely based here and just fly over maybe for a week or so to just do the major ops and whatnot. It's fine, right?
So outside of that, has it worked well for Taiwan so far?
Their problem is because it is nationally determined premium rates, and the political pressure is super strong that you can't increase the premium, and because like everything is free, so people will just over consume. So they're marching towards bankruptcy.
Okay. So did the STB plan then try to manage this situation?
Well, in a sense that they still think that, okay, there will be a fair bit of funding from taxes, but they still think that an insurance scheme, some skin in the game for people is still in order. But they also feel that for older people, when they have retired and no longer have a strong income, they shouldn't be made to pay an escalating premium. So their idea is to get the younger people to subsidize the old, so that when the young people become old, then the next generation will transfer to them. That logic actually only works if the fertility rate holds up, right? Right? Or not just hold up, it has to go back to the replacement ratio. Otherwise, that train wouldn't
just
work.
To be clear, from a user experience standpoint, it essentially means that I lock in the rate, then I lock in the rate, right? I do not, like, my rates do not escalate.
No, it will still escalate by inflation, but it won't escalate so much by age.
I know that. Now it's an exponential one. There's an expo curve.
Both compound, both age-related and inflation-related all goes in. Yeah.
Okay, fair. So, which is why, because the older people have a much higher propensity to require, this kind of like healthcare or sick care, right? And so essentially, in the system, the younger people are subsidizing the older people. Not that you're actually subsidizing, but it's the overall system kind of situation, right? Yeah. And so just now I saw you have a reaction. It's like,
I think there's a parallel here in terms of the social security, right? In some country, right, where you put in, as you work, you put in the social security payment as you work, right? On the go. But by the time you are retired, there may not have enough funds, because there just aren't enough young people putting in money. I believe that is also sort of happening in China, right? And because of that, they need to extend retirement age. They need to do a number of things, right, so that the system will not go bankrupt.
Okay.
Yeah, so our bottom line here is that whatever you do, like, must be sustainable. I mean, you can talk all you want, right? But where's the money coming from?
Okay.
So the healthcare issue is essentially a fertility issue.
Yeah. I mean, in the SDP plan, essentially.
Actually, a very good point. Actually, it's not only a fertility issue, right? In education, unpopular opinion, alert, trigger alert. In education, we now try to tell people, okay, there's no single way of success, right? Why can't we also discuss that there's no single way to single definition of what's a good life? Let me ask you all, do you all enjoy fireworks?
Yeah.
You don't? Okay, so for those who enjoy fireworks, right, it's short, bright, keep people's motivation or enjoyment level up. Why can't someone look at their life or prefer their life to be like firework? I don't need a very long life, right? So long as I have shine bright for the people around me, make everyone, give them value, contributed value to people around me in my life, is good enough. I don't need a constant drive for a longer life. But at the moment, all the narrative is always live longer, healthier, and whatnot, right? You probably need to give people who have a different perspective of what is a good life, right? That choice, right? To live the way that they want, right? I see there's recent talk about, or recent news article about people doing a living funeral, right? When they get cancer, right? They manage to gathering with the loved ones before they pass on, right? And I think that's a very beautiful way to end. So if people are given a chance of doing that and then followed by a dignified assisted suicide, I think it helps, right? So that also, first, it reduces excessive demand on healthcare at the older age, which is very expensive and whatnot. And some more, if it's going to be subsidized, it will lead to increase in tax revenue and whatnot. So by allowing people who don't need too long a life to have their choice, it's a win-win situation.
No wonder you put the trigger alert in
Very
front.
triggering.
Because this is not the popular dimension of thought in today's landscape, right? But I know what you mean from a...
But I'm pro-choice.
Yeah,
right?
I understand what you mean.
Especially in the past 2 years, my dad passed from cancer. My mother-in-law passed from cancer. My mom started to now show signs of dementia. I really don't want to live like that. Right? I don't want to create that burden for my dependents like that.
I went through the same thing. My mom was also on dementia and she survived for another 1 year plus.
Yeah.
And the quality of life is zero, is absolute zero.
Yeah. So I don't want my daughter to experience that. And I probably want her to remember me in my healthy state so that, at least I say a nice goodbye and I leave, right? I see that as very poetic and beautiful. But I'm not given a choice.
Okay, fair.
I think these conversations are already going on, right, in Singapore society, but I think people are still, of course, a bit, don't really want to talk too much about it, right? I have actually written something about a good enough life, but it's not about euthanasia and all these things, right? It's more about maybe instead of trying to say that we must all, this might lead us to housing also, we must all cross over to private housing. We must all possess a private car, all right? Can't we live more simply, okay? And to me, more simply means maybe living in a 4-room flat, still enjoying government subsidies and support benefits of all sorts, right? And then you have more disposable income, to do other things like, family gathering, going for holidays, Why not? Rather than, every month you're trying to pay mortgages, and this could be like the next 20 years or 30 years.
Yeah, and you max out. Yeah.
So what's wrong with living in public housing, 4-room flat, and
and I know
and it's very comfortable.
And I know some of your research indicates that actually people are quite happy with living in the flat, right? Yeah. So hold on to that. We will get there after the break, right? But I want to kind of go back to you on the discussion of between SDP and the rest, right? Essentially, you did say that, but before we went live, right, there's actually like a spectrum to look at this whole thing, right? Whether is it individual responsibility to a shared communal responsibility. Can you kind of lay that for us so that our audience get a better sense? So of course, I have to be very fair. The STB plan is damn long, right? So you gotta go and download if you are truly interested to evaluate it for yourself, and download the PDF is very very thick.
You need to do a lot of reference.
Must do a lot, must do homework. If not, you can ask Paul, Dr. Chi. I'm sure they're very glad to answer you. But maybe give us that thought process.
Well, I guess not just for healthcare, but for all the policies that's presented in the manifesto, right? There's always a range of position that people imagine the society to be. At one spectrum is everyone for themselves. There's not much sharing, right? At the other end is fully communal, right? And for example, the healthcare design, the 3M plus S, actually, there's a lot of emphasis on personal responsibility. That's why you have Medisave account. You manage within your own budget how much you have earned and so on and so forth, right? And SDP probably lean a bit more towards the more communal part of that spectrum. And if you lock yourself to that particular degree of redistribution, then what they have designed is actually very tightly knit and robust, right? But of course, after all, this is a democratic society. Not everyone share the view that we should redistribute to this extent. Then there will still be people who want more personal responsibility. Then I think that's where people legitimately can disagree with SDTP's plan. But one of the problem now is that no party has actually come up to say that, okay, if you don't believe in that much redistribution, then what is the alternative robust stack of things that we should aim for? Right, of course, save for the incumbent, right? Which what they are doing is the stack that
that's what
they are proposing.
So
yeah, but there's no third or fourth alternative that's being presented at the moment. Yeah.
Okay, that is interesting. Okay, yeah. Any last things to add on this front?
I think we are also trying to self-reliance is important, but at the same time, as a society, I think it should be balanced by social solidarity. right? In other words, there are many things that an individual cannot do on their own. There are many things that they can do, but there are many things that they can't do, right? And that's where society comes in, right? And I think a good balance, between self-reliance and social solidarity is just critical.
Yeah. And I think we are moving a little bit more to the communal aspect of things already. I mean, that's the narrative that I see brewing. I don't know if that's what you're seeing.
Yeah, I
it's
see
also
that
part of
too.
the social compact, that whole
I
whole
think
thing.
post-COVID, that seems to be a lot more prominent. There are people who are sort of helpless at home, they can't take care of themselves and all that, right? I mean, COVID sort of exposed the sort of dark side, right? Underbelly of society. And that there are many who actually need social support.
Yeah.
And they are not incapable of self-reliance. And we can't just keep on imposing this self-reliance ideology on them.
Yeah. Fair. I think today, earlier in the day, in another live stream, I think Dr. Paul talked about this. He said that I think one of his interviewees that came to try to join the program, the school, the medical school, right, said that she actually volunteered and found out that there were a lot of people that got are food insecure in Singapore, right? I think like 10 to 15%.
Yeah.
It's quite bad. Like you would have never thought, at least I never thought that it would be so bad. I would think okay, there are definitely people that are food insecure. I mean, certain HDB blocks you can see, right? You walk past, what's the situation, and they tend to be hidden inside the estates, right? But you never thought it was that bad, but I mean,
yep.
Yeah. So is that a fair statement?
Yeah. Because I mean, for a longest time, we always talk about being a rugged society, about being self-reliant, right? I mean, as a philosophy, I think it's fine, but the thing is, there's a limit to it.
Yeah, and if we are always just on our own, then where's the together? Right, where's the social compact? Together. It's just, hey, go lah. Guy never run already. After the election, I try to get Swikit on, right? I would love to talk to him.
After all, we talk about community, right? And we talk about the nation as a community as well. So we are not individuals. A bunch of individuals hanging around.
Yeah, fair. And I personally like this. I think we should all move more towards the collective element, but you cannot go all the way and then there's no more individual variance lah, because then what's the strive to do better, right? But I think this recalibration is happening, on the ground. People want it, and I think even some of the policies you can tell is also moving down that path. It's like all the major parties got the memo. They know what the people want. It's just at which position do they want to take, right? So yeah, thank you. Any last things to add on healthcare? If not, I think we had a good discussion.
Well, I think just back to the healthcare inflation thing, right? I mean, I remember there's one proposal that government should pay for all your shield insurance premium and things like that. And
I think that's the PSP's proposal. Government to pay for Care Shield Life and MediShield Life for all. Yeah,
the estimation was 2-3 million a year, but I think again, the math is only about today's price, right? Just now we talk about emission rate increasing at around 4-5% per annum, and then plus inflation. So quite easily that number would double every 10 years, right? And that how are you going to pay for that? So
So at some point, it is still about managing the profit mechanisms in the ecosystem, right? Which in this case boils down to the healthcare providers themselves, because they take bulk of it and they have a decent margin where they are, and also maybe the distributors.
And in the longer term, healthier SG, such that you don't even need that much consumption.
To pay that much, right? Okay, great. I like the discussion. If you have any comments, put in the comment section. Any specific questions, let us know. I know healthcare is not an easy discussion. That's why we put it first. So thank you. We'll take a break. Okay. Meanwhile, I think that's it. Yeah. Once again, for our Instagram viewers, if you want to continue, go to YouTube. YouTube is for your optimal experience. Yeah. So with that, we'll see you later. Meanwhile, we take 5. Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.